welcoming those members of the public and press who are in attendance. A few housekeeping rules before we begin. If members of the public in attendance need to use the facilities, these are located back on the ground floor through the reception area and opposite Bewitched Coffee. Please note that if the fire alarm sounds, you are to make your way out to the nearest fire exit and continue to the assembly point in Charles Street Square, in front of the multi-store car park. If the alarm is an intermittent sound, this indicates a lockdown. Attendants should stay in their seats and await further instruction. Can I also remind everyone present to switch their phones off or place them on silent? Before we start the meeting, please can I remind everyone that this is a meeting held in public and is being broadcast live on the Council's YouTube channel, and that the recording will be made available on the website in due course. Please, therefore, speak clearly into your microphones. I would also like to remind all present that although this is a meeting open to the public, this is not a public meeting, and shouting out and other interruptions will not be tolerated. Anyone who persists in doing so will be asked to leave the meeting in line with the Council's standing orders. In the event of a general disturbance, the meeting will be adjourned until order is restored. Item number 1, apologies for absence. Can I ask the Democratic Service Officer if there are any apologies for absence or lateness?
Good afternoon, Chair. We have received no apologies for absence or lateness.
Thank you. Item 2, declaration of interest. Does any member wish to declare any disclosable pecuniary interest or non-statutory disclosable interest? No? Thank you. Item 3, declaration to make representation as ward councillor. Does any member wish to make representation as a ward councillor or on any of the items listed? No, thank you. Item 4, minutes of the meeting held on 8th of April 2025. The committee are asked to approve the minutes of the meeting from 8th of April 2025. This can be found on pages 3 to 4.
Just to make a point of clarification, as I'm conscious there are members today who weren't members of the committee at that meeting, you are still entitled to vote on the accuracy of these minutes.
Councillor Mahmood?
Thank you, Chair. I'm happy with those minutes, so I propose that we accept them as they are.
Do you have a seconder? Councillor Scripps? You happy to second? Yeah, thank you. Item 5, development control and enforcement matters. Item 5.1, Woodlands Splash Lane, Castor, Peterborough. The report can be found on pages 5 to 32. Please can I ask Molly Hood Monday to introduce the item.
Thank you, Chair. So the first item before committee today is the development of a sports pavilion, storage facilities and associated infrastructure at the site known as Woodlands off Splash Lane in Castor. Just to run through some items that have been updated since the publishing of the committee report. So we've received further comments from our wildlife officer regarding an updated preliminary ecology appraisal. The comments raise no objection to the development and they still maintain that they're happy with the findings of the report. No protected sites or species will be impacted by the development. And the recommendation was to proceed with the application. There were a couple of informatives recommended for the use of native species, but again, landscaping will be picked up in a planning condition, and an informative regarding development works commencing within the bird breeding season. So again, these can all be picked up. In addition, the previous ward councillor for the area, Councillor Farouk's comments were withdrawn on this application, so whilst they're published in the committee report, they no longer are present on the application file. So the slide here illustrates the site's location, and just to provide some context as well, so we've got the red line boundary covering the area that was before you today. We've then got the existing pavilion facility, which has received extant planning consent for the conversion into assisted care facility, and then the recently constructed care home, which is present to the southern edge of the site. The area that's also included in the red line boundary is a shared car park, which services both the care home, the future assisted living, the existing playing fields, and partially this development as well. And you can see the access road off of Splash Lane leading into the site. Again, this just shows a satellite image of the site and the existing playing fields and the pavilion building and the car park forward of that building. Before you there is the proposed site plan of the pavilion and its location surrounded by the playing fields. We can see it's a single-storey building with the ground floor footprint showing multi-purpose hall, ample changing facilities, a central foyer and a small kitchen to support the multi-purpose hall, a plant room and a small storage area along this right edge. The building itself has been designed to offer a single-storey development with a maximum height of 9.6 metres. It will also focus the orientation of the building towards the pitches, so again, glazing has all been focused onto the southern side of the building. And the next slide will illustrate that elevation. So this top elevation will show the view from the building onto the playing fields that are existing, and this bottom elevation is that directed towards the nearest residential properties to the northeast. And again, this is just showing the proposed floor plans of a zoomed in version of that, so you can see the area of the multi-purpose hall and the entryway into the building and those ancillary changing rooms. And this is the second part of the development. So this is the associated car parking that's proposed with the application. There will be a total of 40 car parking spaces. 4 of those are accessible spaces and the closest to the new pavilion building. And then there's also the provision of EV charging. A continuation of the internal access road will lead up to these new parking spaces. And associated landscaping will surround the car park. So moving on to the main considerations of this application. So I will draw on to the principle of the developments. There's quite a few policies, both spanning the local plan, the national guidance, and the neighbourhood plan. So firstly, to draw attention to the neighbourhood plan policy CRV1, as this particularly references the woodland site, advising that some development of parts of the woodland site will be supported, provided that the recreational facilities identified are enhanced and the development does not create significant additional traffic. So I'll come on to the highways matters later on, but it's just to illustrate that, again, the starting point with the neighbourhood plan is that the development could be supported if it provides that enhancement to the recreational facilities. And then moving on to our local plan is policy LP30, so supporting new community facilities, and LP23, which echoes that of the National Planning Policy Framework, paragraph 104. So in particular, we're looking at Part C, it's just here on the screen, where it talks about the development is for an alternate sports and recreational provision and the benefits which clearly outweigh the loss of the current or former use. And that's the test in which the application has been assessed under today. So looking at the application itself, members may have seen that the Sports England were consulted on the application. Whilst there is an objection raised to the development, this is purely on the loss of playing field area. You'll see within the comments that there is support from the Cricket Board and the English Football Board in regards to the facilities that this would provide, so changing facilities and social space for the existing playing fields. And what was also been come out through conversation is that the development itself wouldn't compromise the existing pitch provision on the site. So whilst there is a loss of playing field, the pitches can still be provided and they are not overlapped, therefore creating complications on use and maintenance. So we have got the existing pitches outlined and we have clarified with the applicant, and there is, again, no loss of pitches. They're all provided cricket and football to meet all age ranges. And the officer assessment is considered that whilst there is a loss of playing field, the benefits of that development have outweighed that limited harm. And therefore, we've considered that under paragraph 104, part C, the development can be supported with those benefits clearly outweighing the loss of the use of those playing fields. So development will maintain its access off Splash Lane, and the images on the screen here illustrate the existing access point into the Woodlands site, and you can sort of see in the background here the existing previously used pavilion building to support the private use. Access has been assessed by the local highway authority, And within that, we've had ample transport reports that have looked at both modelled and recorded data to assess the application and its potential impacts on traffic and movements to the site. The development was considered to result in fewer trips to and from the site than previously estimated, and that's taken into account the historic uses of the site and the current uses, such as the care facilities, and any increase from the pavilion is considered to be below levels which could be expected from the previous pavilion uses. And as such, the local highway authority have raised no objection to the development. As supported by the pavilion is supported by a new car parking area, which the local highway authority requested a minimum of 30 spaces. The applicants have provided 40 new car parking spaces to the south of the pavilion, including those with EV charging and accessible spaces in the closest proximity. The playing fields are in existing use on the site, and these are already shared by this serviced by this shared car park to the right. And as you can see, there is ample parking there, but it's very clear to highlight that there is an existing agreement in place that during the times Monday to Friday during the daytime, the Neame Park Trust have access to 15 car parking spaces, and that is extended at evenings and weekends up to 60. So that's an existing arrangement, we can't change that. But what we have tried to do with this application is provide a betterment, and that's where the additional 40 car parking spaces comes in. So in which case it means that Monday to Friday during the daytime there'll be a maximum of 55 spaces now available to the pavilion and the playing fields, and at the weekend and evenings there would be 100 spaces. And these can be used for match days events such as what would be already existing, so from the playing field use or from the pavilion. So just moving on to the design of the application. So no concerns are raised in regards to the design or scale of the building. Its location is supported by providing minimal loss to the playing field as possible, but still making sure the building engages with those existing playing fields, offers the opportunity for connection of people who are in the building or at the pitch. A condition has been recommended for an additional pitch side shelter for the cricket pavilion, for the cricket pitch, as that's slightly further to the south of the site and has a bit of a distance from the building. And that came of the recommendation of Sports England. The Conservation Officer has reviewed the application and raised no objection. And this is important in particular in regards to the existing Woodlands pavilion that was on site. So this building was historically on site and served a private leisure and sports facility in connection with the Pell Centre. The Pell Centre is a Grade 2 listed building, and this building is on Peterborough City Council's nominated local list because of its connection, but also its architectural significance. The Conservation Officer was happy that the design of the pavilion is an appropriate form and material palette that respects the hierarchy of the buildings on the site and therefore raised no concerns. Other heritage assets in regards to the conservation area and other listed buildings in Lancaster were also considered, and again, no significant harm was identified. So turning towards residential amenity, you may have noticed that within the Sports England comments there was a suggestion that to relocate the pavilion to the edge of the pitch, to the edge of the existing playing fields. And whilst this was taken into consideration, it was felt that the balance between securing a good connection with the pitches and the best residential amenity relationship with the building and the neighbouring properties, the location of the pavilion was maintained as it is. The application was supported by a noise impact assessment, and this has been looked at by the environmental health team. After a review of the assessment and the location of the building, it was felt that conditions relating to lighting, hours of use, ventilation, the closure of windows and doors in the multipurpose hall and foyer for amplified music, and a post-completion noise assessment or noise verification would be sufficient to protect the amenity of those neighbouring residential properties. Furthermore, as I touched on earlier, the application site has been subject to ecology appraisals and a BNG report was submitted. A condition will be applied for soft landscaping and an update of that BNG report should the application be viewed favourably. This is to ensure that the most up-to-date scheme can be applied to take into account the car parking areas. And finally, whilst there was an objection from the lead local flood authority, it was considered the information known from the historic care applications which are adjacent, which identified the ground conditions and the principles supplied within the application itself that a pre-commencement condition would satisfy the test of providing surface water drainage details for the application. As such, this has been recommended with the application, and therefore the development of sports pavilion, storage facilities and associated infrastructure is recommended for approval subject to the necessary conditions. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. We have one person registered to speak on this item. Please, can I ask David Shaw?
Yeah, there's several.
Oh, okay.
So I should say 3. Apologies. That's my...
Apologies. There are 3 people registered to speak. Thank you. Okay, 3 people registered to speak on this item. Please, can I ask David Shaw, Parish Council representative, to address the committee? You will have 10 minutes between you in which to address the committee. The Democratic officer will let you know when you have 30 seconds left and then when the time has lapsed. When you're ready, if you can please switch on your mic and start speaking. Thank you.
No,
No, the middle.
The middle button.
Middle.
Central.
Yes, thank you.
Can you all hear me? Is that better? Good. I'm ready to go. Okay. Right. Chair, councillors, thank you for this opportunity to address you. The views I am about to express are those of the combined villages of Castor and Aylesworth. We held a public meeting attended by over 150 villagers. I want to emphasise that we support the concept of keeping sports pitches on this site and have great admiration for many parts of the Neame Park Trust work. However, with regards to this application, we object because the pavilion is, in our view, in the wrong location and too large. Firstly, the wrong location. We object to placing a pavilion in the middle of the sports pitches, which not only reduces the amount of playing area, but which also seriously reduces the flexibility in use of the sports field. This objection is fully supported by Sports England, who still object. They, like us, and indeed the Football Foundation, believe that there is a much better solution. To give a little more detail, it places a large pavilion right in the middle of probably the best playing fields in Peterborough. By doing so, it reduces the amount of playing field space by about 20% and severely limits the flexibility of using the pitches. At present, the pitches can be changed in location, which happens frequently. For example, they can be changed depending upon whether there is a tournament for children, which requires several smaller pitches, or whether there is a couple of adult games requiring larger pitches. Because the pavilion is being proposed in the middle of the playing fields, the pitches will be squeezed into inflexible locations and awkward, unusable areas are left over. An area is left over for tennis, when there are already 4 derelict courts on the site. The Village Tennis Club has pulled out of negotiations with the Trust, as it will not provide what is required by the tennis club. These areas should be part of the football area. The possibility of having 2 cricket pitches is removed entirely, and the non-turf cricket pitch is lost. I'll come back to that. Placing the pavilion in the middle of the sports field pushes the playing fields very close to residential properties, where the noise from shouting supporters, sometimes there can be 3 consecutive matches on a Saturday or Sunday, is highly likely to become a statutory nuisance. No assessment of this has been undertaken by the applicant. We also have objections to the location of the pavilion due to its impact on the conservation area. We consider that the planning appeal in 2021 at 45 Peterborough Road is a material consideration, as it immediately adjoins woodlands. This is not mentioned in the report. The appeal was lost due to the impact a new building would have on the conservation area without sufficient tree screening. Those are the location issues. Secondly, we object to such a large pavilion. This size of pavilion is not needed by the local community and would harm the viability of our existing community facilities, such as our village hall, Cedar Centre and school hall, as well as our pubs. The local community does not need it and does not want it. It is not accessible to the local community. The Trust are arguing, suggesting such a large pavilion because they want to use it for much wider purposes to serve the whole of Peterborough. The Trust business plan for this facility shows only about 20% of income coming from the main sporting uses of football and cricket. The remaining income is for dance classes, corporate events, etc., serving Peterborough, not the local community. As a sport-only venue, it would lose about £50,000 a year. I'm pointing out these figures to demonstrate that this pavilion is a white elephant. We have derelict tennis courts on site already. We have a derelict sports facility on site, because large sports facilities are not viable here. What is needed is a small, practical pavilion to serve the sports pitches. Woodlands is a totally inappropriate location for additional events and recreational facilities for Peterborough. To explain this, I want to emphasise Sport England policy, which is also the basis for the national and local plan policies. This policy is to place schools, shops, community facilities, sports facilities, principal public open spaces and suitable employment close together at key locations within active and public transport networks. A residential population living amongst these uses will increase catchment and boost viability and is much more likely to walk or cycle to use them. This policy makes places more sustainable and helps overcome the climate emergency. It makes a much more healthy society, and Peterborough is below national standards in terms of health, so this is very important. This means sports facilities should be in Peterborough, not at the end of a lane in the countryside. It is for this reason that each area of Peterborough over the past 60 years has been planned to contain sports facilities. To take two of the very latest ones, Hampton Waters and Great Haddon, these areas are crying out for sports investment. The sports places are planned and approved. They just need delivering. Those are just two examples of the priority areas for Sport England and funding organisations at a time when resources are scarce. Castor and Aylesworth already have more than our fair share of sports facilities and are bottom of the list for further funding. This policy is also echoed in the Nene Valley policy in your local plan. This site is in the Nene Valley, which clearly states that there will be a general emphasis on development involving low-impact informal activity in the rural area of the valley, and development involving more formal activities in the urban area. In your local plan, this site is in a rural area. Further development of the sporting activity at Woodlands is a formal activity which would be directly contrary to this policy. How do we want to be positive? One solution for Woodlands is to place a basic pavilion at the edge of the car park, where it is easily accessible and does not split up the sports fields, as required by Sport England. The existing tennis court should be refurbished, a much greener solution than building new ones, as required by the local tennis club. The non-turf cricket pitch is retained as required by the English Cricket Board. We also do have another solution. Castor Parish Council has suggested to the Trust a land swap, where Castor swaps land that we have adjacent to Ferry Meadows that could enlarge Ferry Meadows for the benefit of the whole of Peterborough in exchange for land at Woodlands, which we can run as football pitches and a cricket pitch. We already have a cricket pitch. Parish councils often run these facilities. There may be other options if parties sit down together. However, I fully appreciate that these schemes are not in front of you. Your current choice is yes or no to what's in front of you. What I'm urging you to do is say no to this scheme for perfectly sound, robust and legal planning reasons. This is the only way to persuade the Trust to go back to the drawing board and produce a scheme that many of the bodies with a stake in this want. The scheme in front of you is contrary to policies 98, 104 and 208 of the National Planning Policy Framework, policies 7 and 24 of the Local Plan, and CRV of the Neighbourhood Plan. Finally, I want to point out a matter of important detail. A key part of the argument in the report in front of you is paragraph 515. This paragraph argues that the test in paragraph 104 of the National Planning Policy Framework has been passed. One of the reasons given is that the non-turf cricket pitch remains. It does not. It is proposed to be built over by the pavilion. The report is wrong. A second part of the argument in paragraph 515 is also wrong. It states that an alternative recreational provision is provided through the pavilion use, either by the sports teams or the surrounding community use. The surrounding community does not want this scale of pavilion. We have enough community space in our village already. I urge you to refuse this application, but send a clear message to all parties that a better solution for the pavilion must be found. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Do any members of the committee wish to ask any questions? Councillor Mahmood.
Thank you, Chair. I've got a couple of questions here, if I may. You've raised concern about potential noise that could probably be generated from these proposals. I just wanted to get your view on the current arrangement of the site. Have you had any sort of issues on noise in its current state?
There are noise issues on there, which are basically come from when they have tournaments on occasionally, which get very noisy. But if you take an average Sunday morning, for example, there will probably be two different sets of matches going on there, one perhaps from 11:30 till 1 o'clock. And the first of those will probably be youngsters who scream about, which is, you know that happens. The second one is more likely to be adults, and they do swear a lot, I have to say. I'm told that's part of football. When they are, distant on the pitches which are away from the residential properties, you put up with it and it's not a problem. But when they are the other side of a garden fence, they are a problem. We try and manage it. I would also say on noise that it is not simply a matter of the next door gardens. I've spoken to several people in the village over the last month about this, and the noise generated, for example, on a Sunday afternoon or a Saturday morning is heard throughout the village, and a village which is generally has got a quiet environment. So the problem is going to be that if this goes here, and I don't know that you've been shown how the football pitches get rearranged on here, but the football pitches get rearranged so they are much, much closer to gardens. And there's not the flexibility to, move pitches around. So you're going to have, next to the gardens, pitches going on for several hours on a Saturday morning, Saturday afternoon, Sunday morning. They tend to have practice matches virtually every evening. It's a very popular spot for football to be played, and that's without a pavilion. It works as it is, works very well, providing that the noise can be kept a little bit further away, as it is at the moment. I hope that, sorry, I've rambled on a bit there, but I hope that gives you a picture. It's not an easy one.
No, thank you. That was very detailed. No, that's extremely helpful. I share some of you. The other thing that I note is in the public representations. So there's been 364 consultations. There's only been 50 responses and 36 objections, and only 13 in support. I'm just trying to struggle about the sort of the residents. You're saying that they're against this development. I would expect to see that objection number to be a lot higher. I mean, the responses back from residents seems to be very low in comparison to the consultations that have happened. So just wanted to get your view on that.
I think they expect the parish council to take up the case. We have an active parish council, as I'm sure you know, and we have big public meetings about this. We take the view and we say we will take that on board.
Any further questions? Councillor Fitzgerald.
David, good to see you. if I set aside the planning issues for a minute, you spent some time talking about the project itself in terms of its relevance, or you used the word viability. Would you not agree that that really isn't a planning consideration in terms of the viability of the project? That's one for the applicant to determine?
It is, but I thought this might come up, and I nearly said a bit more about it. So thank you for the question. But if you look up what the planning advice says, economic viability is part of the planning balance. So you can take it on board, but I wouldn't expect you to refuse this scheme just because you thought it was unviable. That you're quite right. That is a matter for the applicant to decide. But on the other hand, if this is going to become a white elephant, and looking at the history of this site, you know, the tennis courts are in disuse, the Pearl could never make it work, it was on the market for 10 years as a sports facility, no one was interested. It's too far out of Peterborough. So the purpose for saying and explaining that is simply that this is going to, for this to work, it's going to have a lot of funding from sources which don't need any return on that money. And that funding for sports is going to be much more attractive by putting it where the people live. So in places like Hampton, even Warrington, Gunthorpe, Norwood, all these places which need sports investment, that is where funders are going to put it, because this is going to be seen as something which just drains money.
Chair, if I may come back. So, again, that's opinion.
Yep.
The applicant should make that decision. I'm sure you will agree. In terms of the applicant, I notice Neen Park Trust, which is very experienced in those areas. And with due respect, I don't think you are the parish councillor, so I'm just trying to establish this is just opinion, but the applicant has a different opinion. And I agree with you about where things should go elsewhere in the city, but that's not before us today. Just one more point, Chair. Would you also agree that the weight of objections, whether they're for or against, is not a material planning consideration?
I think the views of the public is a material consideration. How much weight you apply to it is entirely yours.
I think you might find planning officers would not agree with that.
Thank you. I have two questions. Now, in your address, you said Sports England continue to object.
Yeah.
And what I understand from their objection, that they have an objection of loss of grass playing field. Is that correct?
That's as I understand it,
Okay.
yes.
On page 10 of the report, they say that they note that the proposal will provide certain benefits of support and is supported by the Football Foundation, ECB. What do you have to say to that?
The ECB are not happy because of the loss of the non-turf cricket pitch. I think that's fairly clear where they're unhappy. In terms of the Football Foundation, I think they're the same as Sport England. Sport England are objecting, but they would like something to happen here. They need a pavilion. We need a pavilion, that's for certain. And I think that's what Sport England and the Football Foundation are saying, that if you make this a more sensible proposal, then they will support it. But at the moment, they're objecting because it's putting the pavilion in the wrong place.
I don't think you've answered my question, but anyway, my second question is that you said that this facility should be in the urban area rather than in the rural area, but this facility already exists. It's not a new facility that's coming there, is it?
No, what exists here are very good playing fields. I noticed that the report stated that the use of this is a sports field. Sorry, I'm perhaps going to get a little bit technical here, but use as for sports which is what's in the use classes order, comes under community uses. When Pearl were using this, and until the last 6 years, this has been a private sports field, which is not the same use. That's a sui generis use. It's not the same use as a community sports field. So there is probably doubt in legal terms as to how long this has been a community playing field. We have no, as I've said, we have no problems with the football pitches. It's purely the case of where a playing field goes, where a sports pavilion goes, and it needs to go in the right place, not in the middle of the pitches. So, I think we 99% agree that we need some more facilities on here, but don't make it a white elephant. Make it a sports pavilion which is of the appropriate scale for what can go on down here. If you have a big pavilion with, you're going to have social events in there, it's going to be started to use for everything else, it becomes something completely different. This is sports pitches who are here purely by accident. When Pearl came to Peterborough, they were going to put their sports pitches next to their offices, but they fluffed about for a while, and by the time they wanted to do that, there wasn't the land left. So the Development Corporation, we had to run around and find somewhere else to put it. And this was not the best location, as was proven, because it was actually, apart from its first year, it was used very little and became quite a problem for Pearl. And then it's never been taken, never worked as a large-scale sports facility until you just use the playing fields, and they need a very basic pavilion to go with it, and then they are wonderful sports pitches.
Thank you. Last question. Councillor Mahmoud Farouk was your councillor who represented that ward. And I know that he's made some comments, but he's withdrawn his comments.
Yeah,
What do you have to say to that?
just to confirm, Councillor Farouk has never been our ward councillor. His son was our ward councillor for a while. I met him on site one day when his son was still the ward councillor, but his son was working in the NHS and couldn't make it. So Councillor Farouk came along and then wrote a letter. Councillor Farouk never has been a ward councillor for Castor, is not at the moment, and I think it was probably quite appropriate that he withdrew his comments because it is not his ward.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. You mentioned that there is going to be lots of playing field area. And according to the documents that we have, it suggests that the same number of playing field area will be available. Apart from, obviously, there is going to be some loss of green spaces, but the playing area is not going to be at any loss.
Well, there is 20% less playing field area. They have managed to squeeze on the same number of pitches by pushing them closer to the edge, putting them very close together, and there is then no flexibility. At the moment, because there is the flexibility in space, they can move them around so that if a goal area gets worn out, they can move it a little while. They've got the space to do that, and they can have more little pitches or more big pitches. They can have flexibility. If they put the pavilion where it is, how they can rearrange those pitches will be so tight that there's no flexibility, and they get very close to the edge of the site. So it is effectively taking away 20% of the space and losing all the flexibility. So there is, and this is why Sport England are still objecting.
Good. Thank you. Point of correction, it was Saqib Farouk, not Mohammed Farouk, who withdrew the statement.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, Councillor Rush.
Thank you, Chair. In your when you was talking, you said that you were talking about the viability of this site, but then you went up to say it's a popular spot, well used. So if it's a popular spot, well used, why will you say that it's a viable? It won't be viable.
Yep. It's a popular spot for parents to bring their children to play football on Saturday mornings and in the weekdays. They bring them in a car, and as soon as they're finished, they take them home again. They have no real use of a pavilion. The bit which is not needed is the extra facilities in a pavilion. What we need is changing rooms, and that's what we need, so that adult players can come. Even adult football players tend to come already changed for their game of football. After the match, they go away again. This pavilion is, it might be used a bit for cricket, but it's still too far away for cricket, because as you've heard, they still want an area closer to the cricket pitch where they can shelter if it rains and to put their bags. So this doesn't really do anything for cricket. This is supposedly for footballers, but they nearly all come changed and go home changed. So it's a popular spot at the moment for a lot of youngsters in particular to come and have a kickabout and play their games on Saturdays and Sundays and in the evenings for training sessions. It has never worked as a place where people come unsocialised, if you like, and do the other things which happen in a pavilion. It's a difference in how the place is used. So yes, it's popular for people to come and play the game of football and the game of cricket, but it's not a place where anybody wants to hang around in a pavilion afterwards.
Thank you. Go ahead.
But don't you think if it was a pavilion with facilities in it, after the football, the parents and children would use the facilities within inside the pavilion?
The Woodlands has never been successful. I don't think it is. They want to get home. They don't want to hang around in this sort of location.
We're not talking about Woodlands. We're talking about this now.
Yeah, well, sorry, I got okay, this site, we call that the whole thing is Woodlands. The original sports pavilion was not successful for Pearl. People don't want to hang around in this sort of location. On a pavilion here, if a little pavilion is needed for people to change in, that is all that's needed. This sort of facility is desperately needed in other parts of Peterborough where the people live and can get to it, can walk to it, and it can be part of their daily life, not having to be driven out here and then driven back home again.
Please go ahead.
You went on to say as well that 99% of people agree that you need this facility, but then you went on to say it should be somewhere else, which is... Yeah. Again,
it's the scale. The football is needed, but not the pavilion of this size. So we're quite happy to have the football there. They're good football pitches. But this is not the sort of location where you try and encourage more and more people to spend time other than playing football. If the football pitches weren't here, you would never put anything here at all. But the football pitches are what is needed. A simple changing room for them to get changed in, and so you can produce cups of tea or whatever, perhaps during the game or whatever. But a full-scale pavilion of this size, it's not the right location for it. That needs to go elsewhere. All that's needed here is the sports pitches, because they're there, they're good quality, use them as sports pitches. That seems to be working. Pearl it was hardly used by Pearl after the first year. Once people had the initial sort of, oh, isn't this nice? We've got a place out here. Oh gosh, now it's too far to get to in the evenings. It's too far to pop home on the way home from work. It's too far to pop into. It was just never used. It became a highly unused facility, and that is our worry here. These sorts of facilities should be where people can get to them very easily. But so that's the difference. The playing fields, yes, use the playing fields. It's this pavilion, which is just too big. It's making a social centre in the middle of the countryside. This should be for playing football and cricket.
Thank you. Councillor Scribbett, I just want to show you that Councillor Rangzeb and Rush raised a hand before you. Okay? Yeah, because as a chair, I'm watching everybody, right? So please,
Thank you.
go ahead. Thank you.
So I just have a question regarding, you say it's, we don't want it, but isn't this this facility for the whole of Peterborough? So how do you know that people don't want it? You're talking about the village of Castor not wanting it.
Yeah, the local community don't want it. Peterborough, if Peterborough needs it, this facility should not be here. It's too far out. Facilities for Peterboroughians should be where they can get to it. To come out here, they've got to get in the car. If you produce these facilities in places in Peterborough, they may be able to walk to them a lot easier, to cycle to them a lot easier. There may be bus routes. This is the whole concept of planning. You don't put things which the community uses, like the urban area of Peterborough, out in the countryside. You put that in Peterborough. That's the concept of planning. So that it's more efficient, we get a more sustainable society, we can overcome climate change, and actually the people of Peterborough have facilities where they need them, not out in the middle of the countryside. And what I would say in addition is that when this facility was here for Pearl, and most Pearl people lived in Peterborough, not in the villages, they didn't come because it's not a convenient location. It's down the end of a country lane.
Sorry, can I come back on that?
Yeah,
Thank
go
you.
ahead.
I understand what you're saying, but you haven't asked the people of Peterborough whether they want this facility. You're assuming they don't because of what's happened in the past. But if we've got this brand new centre, which is very attractive and is enhancing the area, it could be that people would use it. So what you're just basing it on the past and what people in your local area are saying. So can I just ask whether you think other people, if they were asked, might say, yes, we would use it?
Some might, but as I've said, it's a long way out to come for that sort of activity. And it's a bit like saying, right, an awful lot of people would like, if you take retailing, a lot of people like an out-of-town retail store. So you could go on building out-of-town retail stores because people would like them. But it doesn't do the city centre any good. Where do you put these facilities? Planning is about putting them together where people can get to them, not putting them out in the countryside where it's unsustainable.
Thank you. Councillor Fitzgerald.
Just to flesh that argument out a bit, would you not agree that the golf club situated nearby is well used and well attended? And it's in the countryside. Why? Because that's where the land is.
Yep. Golf needs lots of space. The golf is there. Most people who go there, that works. I agree. What I'm saying is that Pearl proved for a long number of years, apart from the first year, that this is not a location which people find easy to get to. Milton Golf Club, for example, is a lot easier to get to. It's on the junction, just off the A47. People can buzz in there quite easily. And other people can go to Thorpe Wood, which is within the town. Autumn Meadows Golf Course is within the town. These facilities are needed more in Peterborough. They're crying out for them. I went to Hampton Waters last week, where there are acres and hectares and hectares and hectares of land waiting to be developed for sports use, right next to 1,700 homes being built. That's where investment in sport should be being made. Yep.
Thank you. You may now return to the public gallery. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Please can I ask Helen Daly, objector, to address the committee? You will have 5 minutes between you in which to address the committee. The Democratic Service Officer will let you know when you have 30 seconds left and then when the time has lapsed. When you are ready, if you can please switch on your mic and start speaking. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for allowing me to speak and to address you. My family have had the privilege of enjoying Ferry Meadows and the more informal part of Neem Park Trust, so I'd like to thank Neem Park Trust for that. But that's exactly the point. Once you get past Ferry Meadows, this is the more informal part of Neen Park Trust. I completely understand the appreciation by current users for the picturesque setting and hope that they will continue to use it. These plans actually spoil the setting by virtue of their scale. They compromise the pitch viability and potentially are unsustainable financially. Legal judgments have emphasised the way we experience a setting is influenced by many factors. For current users, villagers, walkers, cyclists, the experience will be considerably changed by the oversized pavilion. The latest business plan suggests a shortfall in revenue even greater than the first one, and you'd have to do an awful lot of heavy drinking in order to make up the difference. Sports England have objected based on the lack of flexibility for pitches, which will be lost because of the loss of space due to the size and placement of the pavilion. Big buildings and hard infrastructure mean big liabilities, which is something Peterborough knows all too much about. There's a decaying mass of an old building already on the site, and that should serve a lesson. The large pavilion poses a threat to the viability of community facilities such as the village hall. It will, if the village hall and other such facilities fail, then that will impact on traditional buildings and the community that give Castor its unique setting, its sense of place and its charm. Such a large pavilion will drain money available to mitigate against some of the potential harms in tree planting and biodiversity. Splash Lane, the next part I want to address is Splash Lane traffic and the conservation area. Splash Lane is the only public access point for this site. It's a single track road. The photograph that you were shown is the access road. It's not Splash Lane. It's a shared road with walkers, cyclists, wheelchair users from the care home, ambulances, horse riders, farm vehicles, as well as cars. It's been described by the Conservation Officer positively as an informal and verdant character. This positive feature adds to the conservation area. And the Conservation Officer says any proposal should not detract from the character and appearance of the conservation area. The Town and Country Planning Act places a duty on local authorities to preserve and enhance special characters of conservation areas. Excess traffic threatens this. It's extremely difficult to get accurate modelling for this particular site regarding traffic. This is because it is a fairly rare site. It's fairly rare to have a large sports and social facility in a low population area at the end of a country lane. This makes computer modelling very difficult. However, we think that over 98% of users are likely to use their car. It may surprise you to know that residents in Aylesworth fall outside the normal acceptable walkable distance used in planning data systems to community facilities. Increased traffic into the villages from either side of the main route, if too heavy, will impact on the conservation area of Castor and Aylesworth and make active travel more difficult. Most people accessing the site will need to be able to afford a car, so it won't address people in deprivation. And overdevelopment of this site could detract from developing smaller, more local possibilities that are truly walkable, or a larger facility in the Peterborough Sports Quarter, for example, where public transport will be available. There is already a new care home, a decaying large pavilion on the site. It's important that overall development does not ruin the conservation area, including Splash Lane and the main routes through the village. A smaller structure would be more appropriate and welcome. I note the very, very late date of the ecology report, which came in July 2025.
Your time's up. Would you like to round up, please?
The relevant planning law is the Town and Country Planning Act, Section 72, Steers versus Secretary of State for Communities and Local Government 2017, CV1 of the local plan, and any other traffic policies that you have regarding the overuse of cars.
Thank you. Do any members of the committee who wish to ask questions? No. Thank you. Oh, sorry, Councillor Skipstead.
I have just one small question. When you mentioned that the pavilion would cause a threat to the viability of the community centre, what did you mean? The community facilities at the community centre. What did you mean by that, and how would that happen? Thank you.
I think it's a potential threat because it is a very large pavilion with a large space to hold events and things like that. So there is potential for quite a lot of noise on a hot day when somebody's having an event that would normally have been booked in the village hall. That's one example. Opening windows isn't going to help the noise issue that was mentioned earlier. And there's such a big gap. I'm sorry, I understand the point about financial sustainability, but we've already had a big problem with a big pavilion on this site. And you know, you've got to do a lot of heavy drinking and a lot of events in order to bridge that gap between the money that is coming in from sports and the money that you're going to get from other events.
Thank you. Any further questions? Councillor Bisbee.
Thank you. You said that this is too large, but surely football team is a perfect place for them to hold their award ceremonies and be able to keep that part of football together in where they actually play. Is that not true?
Well, it doesn't avoid the fact that 98% of people are going to be turning up to a village location down a conservation road in a conservation village way outside Peterborough when, you know, these facilities might be more appropriate in the new sports quarter, for example. So it still doesn't avoid that, and I'm still sure that you could build a smaller facility and still have those award ceremonies. You know, not everybody can have all the bells and whistles all the time, and I just think this is a very inappropriate site. This is actually what Splash Lane looks like. Sorry,
sorry,
such a small picture.
You're not allowed to circle it.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Thank you. Any further questions? Thank you. You may now return to the public gallery. Thank you.
Thank you.
Please, can I ask Nicola Craven, the applicant, to address the committee? You will have 5 minutes between you and within to address the committee. The Democratic Service Officer will let you know when you have 30 seconds left, and then when the time has lapsed. When you're ready, if you can please switch on your mic and start speaking. Thank you.
Is that on? Cool, thank you. Chair, members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to speak today in support of this important application submitted by Neem Park Trust. My name is Nicola Craven and I'm Head of Development for the Trust. Tony Buckingham from Bretton Cricket Club and Anton Barrett, Chair of Thorpewood Rangers, would both like to provide their endorsement of the project through me today. We are very pleased that after 2 years of careful consideration and review that your officer has clearly recommended the application for approval and confirmed that there are no material planning issues to prevent the committee from supporting this important investment in the city by approving this application today. As many of you are aware, Woodlands became a sports facility in the 1980s when Pearl Assurance relocated its main operations from London to Peterborough. As part of that move, they built a substantial sport complex for their staff. It was a vibrant hub used by thousands of employees from across Peterborough. The Development Corporation at the time recognised the importance of providing high-quality recreation and sporting facilities to support the well-being of the residents of the city, a vision that Neem Park Trust continues to uphold today. Shortly after Paul left the facilities became derelict, and it is only due to the efforts of Neem Park Trust, our dedicated volunteers and the passionate local clubs that has got the site back to almost its former glory. And it is regarded as some of the best pitches in Peterborough, second only to Posh. The Woodland site continues to serve the people of Peterborough. I am sure many of your residents of your wards greatly benefit from the opportunities it provides. Approving this project will help secure its long-term future by providing the permanent facilities needed to help keep it thriving for the communities that you serve. The application is a result of 7 years of investment by Neem Park Trust in restoring and maintaining the sports pitches at Woodlands. These pitches are well used by Thorpewood Rangers football team and 4 local cricket clubs, with over 200 football matches and 70 cricket matches played each year. The proposed pavilion will provide the essential infrastructure to support this activity, offering proper changing rooms, a multi-purpose hall and accessible facilities that are currently lacking. As your officer indicate within their report, the consent is granted for the conversion of the old Woodland Sport to care use. This established a need for a replacement pavilion, as did the Sport England support for that application. The neighbourhood plan also supports the development of recreation facilities on site. While local objectives may raise that there are planning considerations to be addressed, the planning officer's report is clear. There are no material planning issues outstanding. Every statutory consultee, from highways to ecology, from conservation to pollution control, has reviewed the application in detail. Their concerns have been addressed through amendments and conditions. The proposal complies with the Peterborough Local Plan, the Castor Neighbourhood Plan and National Planning Policy. The officer's recommendation is to grant permission. Addressing the Sport England objection, while they have maintained a statutory objection, it is important to understand that this is a policy-based objection, not one on the grounds of the practical realities of the site. Sport England's own comments acknowledge the benefits of the proposal and support it has received from the Football Foundation and the England and Wales Cricket Board. These national sporting bodies recognise the value of a new pavilion and the improvements it brings to the site. The planning officer has clearly concluded that the benefits of this development strongly outweigh the minimal loss of playing field space. As the committee are likely to aware, Sport England's role in the planning process is changing. Their statutory continuity status is being reviewed, and in the future, objections of this nature, based solely on policy rather than on practical impact, will no longer carry weight. This application, however, has been developed in close collaboration with Sport England from the outset. Their input has shaped the proposal, even if their formal position remains unchanged. It is a well-designed, modestly scaled building that respects its setting. It's been developed with a local design team who are passionate about the city and sustainable architecture. It has been carefully located to minimise impact on neighbours and heritage assets, and it will be built using high-quality natural materials. The proposal includes sustainable drainage, biodiversity enhancements and improved access and parking. It is a thoughtful, community-focused development brought forward by a local charity in partnership with many of the users on site. It will secure the long-term use of woodlands for sport and recreation forever.
30 seconds remaining.
In conclusion, this application is not just about bricks and mortar. It's about investing in the health and well-being of our community at a time when public bodies are struggling to do so. It is about supporting grassroots sport, particularly after the Lionesses' monumental win on Sunday. And it is about delivering the charitable commission of Neem Park Trust to create a healthier, happier and more active Peterborough. I respectfully urge you to support your officer's recommendation and improve the application. Thank you.
Thank you. Do any members of the committee wish to ask questions? And I understand it's Councillor Bisbee first.
Thank you. And through you, Chair. You've heard earlier on the previous speaker say that the proposed pavilion is in the wrong place and too large.
Yes.
What's your answer to them in that respect?
So I would say it's designed to be as economic as possible. We have worked with the sports bodies on what they need. If any of you have worked with multiple sports bodies and tried to give them everything they want, it's almost impossible. This is, has quite a lot of hard work, I suppose, to address. Obviously, we need room for 2 changing teams. You need rooms for officials. At Neem Park Trust, we are passionate about accessible facilities, so it has a changing places facility in it as well. That takes room. To address the sports hall, I think one of your colleagues mentioned that sporting award ceremonies and things, so the football team were really keen on that. The cricket teams need somewhere to have their tea. So to address what they need for that, that's for that. We also need it to wash its face. So, you know, to have events there will help support the site financially. To address the gap, if I can do that now, we're a charity, you know, as in the city, we're used to making things work, but also we have significant investments. We're willing to invest in the Peterborough and their well-being, and if we have to match fund some of that, we will.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. If I may, the comments have also been that this is too big, and it's nothing that we should be commenting on really, but the viability of the building. If there wasn't the extra hall, would you regard that as being viable at all?
No, the extra hall is definitely, it's part of the viability, but it's also about what the users are requesting for the site. So we have porta cabins on the site at the moment, which aren't financially sustainable at all. But that doesn't address the social needs as well, and that community feel. You know, and Thorpeford Rangers particularly are hoping to move up the leagues, and they need particular facilities to do that as well. They won't be able to do that without a facility that provides the things that are in this building.
Thank you. Councillor Rush?
No, she's already answered my questions.
Thank you. Any further questions? Councillor Fitzgerald?
Thank you very much. I know a lot about Neen Park Trust.
Yeah.
In fact, my house backs onto Neen Park Trust land. There are many things I could ask you to address, but they're not really relevant to planning, but they've been mentioned today.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to waste the committee's time or the people watching. We'll cover that perhaps in debate in terms of comment, Chair. But what I would say to you, do you believe that Neen Park Trust have a good track record, and I think you just said of making things work, and have you not just recently invested in the main facility in Ferry Meadows? And also, did you not prepare a business case for this before venturing into a planning application? Presumably you did.
Yes, we did. I think as well, the history of us taking over the site as well. So we were asked to bring it back from Peterborough City Council. So, you know, so 7 years ago, the Parish Council, the City Council, and Sport England were all very keen that we became the custodians of the site again. What we've done in that time is try to make it work. You know, we look at different elements of that within a business case, but as I've stated already, you know, we're a charity. We can invest where we want to, and we are not an economic. You know, we're not trying to make something economically viable. We don't have to. We want it to wash its face, which is why the community hall is key to the sustainability of it. But we're not looking to make profit from the site. We are looking to make it sustainable and to allow the communities to have a good site where they can enjoy their football, where young girls can come along and train up. You know, and everybody, as I said, you know, a happy, active Peterborough, which I'm sure is what we all want.
Thank you. Any further questions? My question. So what I understand from your address is that the scheme that you've presented is a scheme that is only doable by the users. They want it in that way. Had it not wanted that way, you would have looked at alternatives. Is that correct?
Yeah, so we worked with our users, but we also worked with the sporting bodies. So I said they all have particular requirements, and to try and make those meld together into one building is not the easiest thing in the entire world. But we've had project meetings with them, and that's where where the architectural development came from.
Thank you. No further questions? Okay, you may now return to the public gallery.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Right. Do any members have questions for officers? Councillor Mahmood.
Thank you, Chair. Through you, I've just got one question. It's just regarding the disabled parking provision. I note that there's only provision for 4 out of the 40. So I just want reassurance that that is sufficient. disabled, accessibility, I want to make sure that's quite important.
So we don't have a set standard within our parking policy at the moment in the local plan, but in usual comments from our local highway authority, it asks for 10%, so that would accord with what we would go by for being at the 40.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions for Officer? Councillor Fitzgerald.
Just, Molly, if you could just clarify, I don't think it's relevant in terms there was some reference by Mr. Shaw about the use of the site. That wouldn't be at this that would be in a separate issue enforcement. You're assessing it on the application, and presumably it would comply with the current use, or the use would be granted with that planning permission. Is that correct?
So in terms of the existing use, yes. So we're looking at, there is an existing playing field provision. It is an outdoor recreational use, whether
Sure.
it was used as a private or now a community facility, it's still outdoor recreation and fall under F2. And then this application itself, it would be a permitted with that use as
Correct.
such. Yeah.
Okay, just for clarity, so A, historically, you think it complies, but B, the new application would grant the specific use anyway?
Yes.
Correct, thanks. It's only because it was mentioned in public. I want us to be clear about that.
Thank you. Councillor Rush.
Thank you, Chair. One of the things on the planning now we have to look into is the biodiversity gain. And I read in the paperwork that doesn't come up to 10%. Is that acceptable?
So this application actually predates the mandatory national legislation, so there isn't a requirement to deliver the 10% net gain. But what they have provided previously is a biodiversity net gain report, which did provide net gain on the site. As we've added in the additional car parking to try and facilitate to mitigate some of the parking impact on residents or concerns from residents nearby, we now have applied a condition for an updated biodiversity net gain report, which we're seeking an enhancement still. So although they don't need to meet that mandatory 10% because it predates that legislation, we are still seeking a net gain on the site.
Thank you. Councillor Abond.
Thank you, Chair. So I think this one's for highways. So Splash Lane was mentioned, and that the fact it's used by multiple users, so walkers, cyclists, wheelchair users, etc. Do you have any concerns about the fact, whether it's the size or is there enough space for traffic to safely pass, that kind of thing?
Thank you, Chair, through you. Essentially, yes, Splash Lane is a country lane. It doesn't have footways along the full length. It's not fully 2 cars width all the way along. However, the traffic that would be generated as a result of this application, including all of the facilities that have already been permitted on the site in terms of the care homes and the consented uses that haven't been implemented, the traffic generation from those is still predicted to be fewer trips than could be generated by the extant consent for the playing fields site and what was there before. So we couldn't ask for any improvements because the anticipated traffic generation is less than could have been historically expected.
Thank you. Councillor Rangzeb.
Thank you, Chair. In regards to the parking spaces, 40 new car parking spaces are provided, and having visited the site, I've noticed that where there are currently the changing space or the porta cabins, I mean, that area could have been used because that would have protected some green space as well, considering the Sports England concerns as well. Did we not advise on that, or wasn't that viable?
So all we can look at is to provide the car parking within the red line. So at the moment, that the red line boundary doesn't cover that area. As to whether that falls in the responsibility of Neen Park Trust, that would have to be a question directed to the applicants, if that's okay, Chair.
I would like you to address that point. Yeah, I think Councillor has made a valid point. That's very useful. Thank you. Any further questions? Okay, if there are no more questions, I will move to debate. Does any member wish to start the debate? Councillor Mahmood.
Thank you, Chair, if I may. I consider I've looked at the officer's report, I feel that this is a very positive development and definitely something that is needed. On this occasion, unless my colleagues sway me in any other way, I will be supporting officer recommendations.
Anybody else? Councillor Rush.
Thank you, Chair. Yes. I agree with the planning officers at the moment. It's a site that's been brought back into use. I can understand the objections from the parish councillor and the resident, but we need to bring this sort of land back into use, not let it just lay there and rot. There's been a lot of talk about the viability of the pavilion, but I think the Nicola has explained the use, what it's going to be used for, changing rooms, kitchens, and perhaps other entertainment to make it viable. So I think this is a good project for the area, and I will be supporting the officer's recommendation.
Councillor Bisbee.
Yes, thank you very much, Chair, through you. For me, this is a facility that provides the needs of the sports people that attend there, the footballers. It gives them changing facilities, it gives them extra parking, and the fact that they've got another hall where they can use for anything from their award ceremonies to afternoon teas, whatever that is going to be used for, I believe it's going to enhance the sports there. So for me, I believe it's a good thing to have.
Thank you. Councillor said.
Thank you, Chair. I too understand the local concerns, but I think the bigger picture is that this development provides enhanced sporting facilities for the whole of Peterborough, and whether or not it's close enough to the city, it is for everyone, and therefore a benefit to the larger community, addressing the needs of many people, providing healthy sports pursuits, which are much needed for everyone. So therefore, I will also be endorsing the officer's decision. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Warren.
Thank you, Chair. When I was looking at this application, I was looking at obviously how this is going to affect the character of the visit, how the highways is going to impact, this site is going to impact the highways impact of these villages in that situation. Listening to the parish councillor, I understand his about argument and I can sympathise with him in that situation, but there was no real material plan applications because viability was an opinion and there was no real evidence of that situation. If the Trust didn't think this was going to be viable to meet the needs of the users, they would have not put this plan forward. So I could not see any reasons why from the parish councillors and from the residents. I understand and thank you for that strong objections to this plan. So looking at what we've seen with the harm and the benefits, I could not really see a little bit of harm with the loss of the land in that situation, and I get that, but I see a lot of benefit, not just towards the village, but towards their Peterborough in that situation. This is a really positive application for the whole of the city of Peterborough, and I would welcome this application. So I will be going with the officer's recommendation.
Thank you. Anybody else? Councillor Fitzgerald.
Thank you, Chair. So I'll just run over a few things from my notes that have been made during debate and questions. So I would imagine, firstly, well done, Molly, another excellent report that you've provided today. Rare is an application, perfect, but you clearly laid out the on-balance recommendations to approve this. So the investment by Neen Park Trust is probably considerable. We know who they are, we know what they're doing. To question the viability is not for us, that's for them. Whether it's a white elephant or not, that's for them. They're putting the money in and they are a charity. It's always been a sports facility, although whilst in the stewardship of Pearl probably wasn't the best business decision, but times have changed, and to say the site will remain a white elephant or not successful is a bit of a slight on the good folks at Neen Park Trust who have been making successful business decisions over a number of years. But again, these may not be material planning considerations, but as we're in public session and they're said in public, it is right to address these things. Mr. Shaw says the right place. Well, there's lots of places across the city that are needed, but it's a matter of opinion. It's that opinion, officer's view or the parish council's view. The applicant, as worded, should be noted also, never mentioned that neither ward councillor I see has objected to this application. And a former ward councillor, Councillor Farouk, withdrew his objections. David Shaw was telling in his words, quote, "That's what we need." Who is he speaking for there? It seems to me that's a one-sided perspective from the parish council and others, and they're entitled to that view, but it doesn't speak collectively, as Councillor Skibsted says, for the whole of the city. So what I would say is, you know, as I pointed out about the golf club, people travel to the golf club because it's where it is. And if there are facilities on offer, and I hope it's successful if they put in new social facilities that people can use, I think that would be a good thing, not only for Neem Park Trust, but for the city, which is why I think, well, by the way, there are lots of conditions to this application. So officers have worked hard to condition this application, and the applicant has some hurdles to overcome. So I think on balance, I will support it, and the on balance is the paragraph 104 section C, was it? Which I think is relevant, and it's not the first time that this committee has been faced with that decision. And I think in this case, on balance, the officers have got it right, and I think the committee should support this application, even though everybody might not be in agreement, but that's the way of the world.
Councillor Abond.
Thank you, Chair. So I do have concerns over the splash lane access. I do think there's going to be points where it does get very busy. However, highways have obviously answered that. We can't ask for any better, which is fair enough. Hopefully the traffic is at very specific times. But you've got to look at the wider picture as well. And taking that into account, I've got to say I will be supporting the application. But as I say, I do have reservations about the splash lane, but it seems like we can't ask for any better. So, thank you.
Thank you. Any further debate? Councillor Fitzgerald.
Just in response to Councillor Bond's suggestion, I think probably the traffic is probably less, is what I'm being told, than previous uses in the overall length of time of the site. So I don't think the traffic's got worse. In probably its historical perspective, it's not as bad as it was. So, and the highways team have, correct me if I'm wrong, one of them, but have done that modelling and say it's acceptable. Now, I know it's not ideal, but as I said, no planning application is. But if they're not concerned, and that's who's being paid to give the professional advice, I'm not going to question that, if there's no reason to.
Councillor Bont, you want to come back in?
No, just to come back on that. So I do agree with Councillor Fitzgerald. I do have images of seeing at, say, 3 o'clock when a football game kicks off, or at 2:30, there will be an increased number of traffic movements, and again, when there's social events. But as you say, highways have answered that, and yeah, there's not much we can do about it. So it's not ideal, as you say, but yeah, I do have concerns about it. So.
Thank you. Councillor Rangzeb.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I also have concerns on the access to the site from the splash lane. But obviously, considering that there was already playing fields there, and this is something we need to consider, and this new facility is there to enhance that, provide better changing facilities and all that. Therefore, on balance, I think I would be supporting this.
Thank you. Any further debate? I'm just going to add a few things. Well, the starting point is a single story. They are awarding 40 parking spaces. Yes, it is accepted that there is a loss of space, but the benefits outweigh the harm. The design and scale has not been objected. Now, parish councillor and objector came to the committee, and I, in the capacity as a chair and a committee member, give highly regard to the representatives. But unfortunately, on this occasion, I felt that their address was only speculation, opinion-based, and it didn't address any material planning considerations. Therefore, I wouldn't be able to attach any weight to their address. Any further debate? No? So I can see there are no more raised hands. In that case, please can I ask for a proposal? Councillor Rush.
Thank you, Chair. My recommendation would be to go along with the planning application's recommendation to grant this application subject to relevant conditions.
Thank you. Do you have a seconder?
I'll be happy to...
Just 1 second. Yeah, please do.
Thank you, Chair. Through you. So I just wanted to clarify that should members approve this application today, there is a statutory duty that we have to consult the Secretary of State, because Sport England have lodged an objection. That the Secretary of State could choose to pull it in for their own determination, or more likely they will just say, okay, not a problem, the local authority can go ahead with their determination. I just wanted to make committee aware of that before you make your decision.
Thank you. I don't think that changes the position, but anyway, can I have a seconder? Councillor Bisbee.
Yes, I am really happy to second this and go ahead with what the officers have suggested.
Thank you. So we will now move to the vote. If members can raise their hands for those in favour, I think it's going to be the green, if I'm right? Green, yeah. The green card. So it's unanimous, so I don't need to address anything else.
No, everyone's voted. Everyone's voted.
Thank you. Thank you. So you've read the result? Yeah, it's been done. Next item now, which is 5.2. Land east of Newborough Road, Paston, Peterborough. Members, would you like a comfort break, or should we just go ahead? Would you like a 2-minute break? Yeah. 5 minutes, yeah. I think we need a 5-minute break. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Newborough Road, Paston, Peterborough. The report can be found on pages 33 to 64. Please can I ask Asif Ali to introduce the item?
Thank you, Chair, and through you, the application site is formed of 2 parcels and is land to the east of Newborough Road in Paston. The application is for outline consent for the demolition of existing agricultural buildings and the development of a phased residential development of up to 1,130 dwellings, including green space access and associated infrastructure. All matters are reserved except for access, which means that matters relating to layout, appearance, landscaping and scale are all shown indicatively or illustratively on the submitted plans, with the only matters up for approval being the access. So this slide shows the part of the urban allocation which is in question, so specifically LP 35.6, which is this 2 parcels up here. The entire allocation of 35.6 is known as Norwood and has been allocated indicatively within the local plan for 2,000 homes. It also shows Paston Reserve, which is not part of this application, but is the adjacent urban allocation. This slide shows the extent of the application site. So as mentioned, it does form part of 2 land parcels, 2 separate land parcels. So this parcel adjoins Newborough Road, and you have the other more crescent-shaped parcel along the A47 and the A16. So the A16 up here and the A47 just down here. There is a scheduled monument that runs to the north of this site and continues across the Paston allocation. The southern boundary of the scheduled monument does fall within the application sites. So this slide shows the permission that was granted last month with the finalized section 106 being set out, known as Leeds Farm. The approval was for 800 or up to 870 dwellings, a primary school, a local centre, open space and landscaping, and this, similar to the application before members, was a outline consent with only access secured and all other matters shown indicatively to be dealt with at a later stage. So for clarity, whilst these are 2 adjoining applications, one of which has already received consent, the council very much sees the 2 applications complementing each other, which is why it was secured under a single allocation. Across both applications, the total number of dwellings align with the indicative number set out within the local plan. Further mechanisms have been put in place within the already consented scheme to ensure that connectivity and key infrastructure is available across both sites in a timely manner. These mechanisms will be replicated on the application site and will include matters such as conditions for phasing plans, design codes, development area briefs, and delivery of connecting infrastructure within the potential Section 106 agreement. This is a satellite image of the application site, which consists of agricultural fields with an agricultural building located just off Newborough Road, just there. Members will note that you have Dogsthorpe Star Pit, which is a SSSI, so a site of special scientific interest to the southeast. You have the A47 and A16 to the south and southeast of the site. The village of Eye is just off the screen, but is just located up here. And the village of Newborough is 2 kilometers to the north of the site. And Paston Reserve, which is the other urban allocation, just the side shown on the previous slides, is largely built out, and it also consists of Manor Drive Academy, which includes provision for early years, primary and secondary provision. This plan shows the overview of the application site adjacent to Newborough Road. Matters of note are the access points, including the vehicular access marked by the orange star, as well as pedestrian and cyclist crossing points marked by the blue stars. Proposed accesses will need to be LTN 120 compliant. LTN stands for Local Transport Note, which is produced by the Department of Transport as guidance for local authorities in delivering high-quality cycle infrastructure. As part of the development, there will also be a need to widen Newborough Road to include footway cycleway provision as well as traffic calming measures. This slide shows the proposed new site access roundabout, which will be located off the A16. Members will note that the proposed works will need to tie in with the wider highway network. A key part to enable this development will be a scheme of public highway works, which are being progressed by the Cambridgeshire and Peterborough Combined Authority. The detailed works, including the highway components and the active travel measures, are set out within the committee report, but in brief include the closure of the Newborough Road junction access onto the A47, but only the southbound carriage. The dualling between the A16, between the proposed site access roundabout and the A16, A47 and Welland Road roundabout. The part signalisation of the A16 approach onto the A16, A47 Welland Road roundabout, and a pedestrian and cycle bridge over the A47. So this slide shows the parameter plan for the access point. So the red star indicates the access arrangement, which is up for approval, with the yellow and purple stars and the yellow roads all indicative, with the matter of detail to be agreed later. As mentioned, mechanisms will be put in place to ensure that the infrastructure and points of connection are set out appropriately across both sides to ensure that the entire allocation becomes a high-quality development. This slide shows the parameters plan for the maximum building heights. The plan shows 4 colors, with the darkest color indicating a height up to 4 stories, dropping down to 3, 2.5, and 2 stories being the lightest. Members will note that the 30 and 50 meter buffer lines to the north of the site, providing the separation from the scheduled monument as required by Historic England. The 4-story height towards the A47 is a deliberate design approach as part of the noise mitigation strategy to shield gardens and areas behind from unacceptable noise levels. The high-level strategy has been agreed with the environmental health team, with the remaining details to be secured at reserve matters stage. The maximum building heights also sit appropriately across the already approved Leeds Farm scheme. Finally, this slide shows the illustrative master plan, which sets out the development, once it could be like, the final details in relation to the reserve matters to be agreed. This shows members some context of where the new site access roundabout will be located, as well as the relationship with the already approved Leeds Farm scheme, which sets out the approximate location of the school, which is this building up here, as well as the local centre, which is just here. So just talking about a couple of the highway improvement schemes. So one of those schemes was talking about the closure of the southbound carriageway onto Newborough Road. So that will be approximately from this location. So you will still be able to access the school access of Newborough Road, which members saw on site, and then with no further access to the A47. Similarly, this part of the road will be dualed, and this is the A16, A47 Welland Road roundabout, with the Welland Road junction being just up here. So, main consideration. So, the committee report sets out in detail the matters which are here before members, including matters which are for approval and matters which are only shown indicatively or illustratively. But going through some of the key areas briefly, in terms of principle of development, this site is an allocation under the current local plan, and across both sites the indicative residential numbers and facilities are provided on site. In terms of highway safety and access, the local highway authority and National Highways both have raised no objection to the development, setting out their recommended conditions and obligation requests. The most significant one is the matter relating to the impact on the strategic road network. So National Highways have set out the need to limit the occupation of dwellings across the Norwood allocation to 200 dwellings until the CPCA highway works are carried out. Those were the dualling and the closure of that A47 carriageway. The LHA have requested monies towards the CPCA scheme. For clarity, the 200 occupation limit has been set out on the already approved Leeds Farm scheme and is proposed to be duplicated on this application. So for clarity, that this is a cumulative figure. This is not a 200 figure. It's a 200 across the entire allocation. The rationale behind it being that anything beyond those 200 occupations without the mitigation works being carried out would likely result in a severe network impact as set out by National Highways and by the local highway authority. Amenity and design. Matters relating to amenity and design have been considered in terms of the submitted parameter plans to ensure that the approach within the parameter plans are acceptable, and the detailed approval needs also to align with this strategy. And finally, viability. The application has been through a rigorous viability review process of around 10 months by an independent viability consultant on behalf of the council. So policy LP8 of the local plan, which relates to housing and affordable housing specifically, sets out that development proposals should, through negotiation, provide 30% affordable housing. The developer's contribution, SPD, also sets out that there may be exceptional circumstances in which the development proposal may be unable to meet full policy requirements of the local plan. The independent viability consultant advised that there is a limited pot of monies which can be used towards affordable housing and contribution requests. Officers have had to strike a balance between the delivery of affordable housing on site as well as setting monies aside to deliver key pieces of infrastructure. As such, the decision was made to recommend the scheme to provide a 10% affordable housing provision and a total of £26.5 million in terms of the total Section 106 financial package, as well as a land transfer on both sides of the A47 to allow for the cyclist pedestrian bridge proposed as part of the CPCA works. The 10% affordable housing provision is the same as provided on Leeds Farm. So each viability review is carried out independently, but it is useful to see a comparison between the Section 106 obligations across both sites. So as mentioned, each site is dealt with in terms of viability on its own merits and based on national and local policies. But this slide sets out a table of the secured heads of terms for Leeds Farm and the draft heads of terms before members today on this application site. The Leeds Farm consent provides a provision of a viability review mechanism which reviews the viability position of the development once the development begins construction to get the actual costs and profits of the development. And if any additional profit is made, then the money is secured towards the provision of affordable housing delivery in the city. This proposal, it would also include this viability review clause. So it's also useful to note that this combined package would serve the entire allocation of Norwood for the delivery of their key infrastructure. So the application received 12 comments via public representation, 9 objecting. The topics of the objections included highways and traffic, environment, local infrastructure, footpaths and rights of way, scale and layout. However, these matters are addressed alongside matters raised by statutory and non-statutory consultees within the committee report, and there is no significant impact which cannot be controlled by way of conditions or Section 106 obligations. Also to note, since the publication of the committee report, Newborough and Borough Fen Parish Council made representation, which is covered within the update report, setting out that the parish council agreed to support this application subject to the development being completed in phases with necessary infrastructure in place before the next development phase begins. Concluding this presentation, officers set out their recommendation as follows. Firstly, indexation is taken from the date of committee resolution as per the Leeds Farm consent. Second, the proposal complies with the allocations and the policies of the local plan and the MPPF, and no material considerations which would weigh against the granting of this planning permission are present. Finally, officers recommend that outline consent is approved, subject to conditions and the Section 106 being finalised, with delegated authority to officers to negotiate the final conditions and agree the Section 106 based on the draft heads or terms within a reasonable time period. Officers recommend a 12-month period as a reasonable time period for the negotiating of the Section 106 unless there are extenuating circumstances. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. We have one person registered to speak on this item. Please can I ask Josh Dickinson, the applicant's agent, to address the committee. You will have 5 minutes between you in which to address the committee. The Democratic Service officer will let you know when you have 30 seconds left and then when the time has lapsed. When you are ready, if you can please switch on your mic and start speaking. Thank you.
Thank you. Can everyone hear me? Thank you. Thank you, Chair. My name is Josh Dickinson, Assistant Director at Deloitte, and I am the agent acting on behalf of the applicants, the Church Commissioners for England, Milton Peterborough Estates Company, and Central England Cooperative. Each applicant is a strategic landowner with wider interests in Peterborough, so are keen to deliver quality development across Peterborough that will benefit existing and new communities, a prospect that we truly believe this proposal offers. The application before you seeks outline consent for the phased delivery of 1,130 dwellings, including associated infrastructure, and represents the remaining developable area of the allocated site at Norwood. A resolution is sought for outline consent with all matters reserved save for the vehicular access from the A16. The outline consent is for the principle of development alongside the parameter plans which will help guide future development of this site. As stated, the application is for the delivery of 1,130 homes and also includes important infrastructure which is essential to the delivery of the whole allocation, including the planning permission for the neighbouring site at Leeds Farm for the additional 870 homes. This includes a new A16 roundabout junction as the primary access to the allocated site, improvements to Newborough Road, high quality open space and amenity attenuation. Without this infrastructure, due to current capacity issues, only 200 homes can be delivered at Norwood. We have worked collaboratively with the LPA, National Highways, the Combined Authority, Natural England, the Local Wildlife Trust and the EA to ensure the remaining 1,800 homes at Norwood can be unlocked. As Asif set out, the scheme will provide 10% affordable housing alongside the delivery of on-site infrastructure and a significant package of financial contributions totalling £26.5 million towards social and highway infrastructure improvements. As set out in the officer's report, this has followed viability negotiations, which is an approach supported in the policies contained within the adopted local plan. The plans submitted with the application showing the layout and landscape are illustrative and demonstrate that a sustainable scheme which responds to its local context and meets policy requirement can be brought forward under the site under the parameter plans. Reserve matters applications will come forward and will deal with the mix of homes, landscaping, appearance, open space and BNG provision. The proposals in front of you today have been finessed through working iteratively with the LPA's officers and the statutory consultees on the technical matters. During the determination of this application, we are now at the point where we are proud to say that there are no objections from the technical statutory consultees and that your officers are recommending approval for the application. On amenity, through the course of the application, it became clear that a robust strategy to address potential noise issues arising from the proximity of the A16 across the whole site would be the responsibility of these applicants to deal with on behalf of the wider allocation. Working closely with the LPA and public health officers, A revised strategy and updated parameter plans with increased massing in the southwest corner were prepared and show that a robust scheme can come forward, which is compliant with policy LP17 of the local plan. Open space. The scheme proposes a mix of high-quality open spaces which will be linked through active travel routes across the development. In combination, the two planning applications provide a surplus of high-quality open space in line with the adopted LP21 of the adopted local plan. On flood risk and drainage has been considered within the flood risk assessment and drainage strategy. The illustrative scheme shows in a worst-case scenario that the proposed SUDS basins are sufficient and are sufficient mitigation and that they will achieve a suitable flood risk environment for the whole development. As set out in the drainage strategy, integrated solutions will be available as well, reducing the reliance on SUDS basins. The drainage strategy and FRA are supported
30
by
seconds remaining.
and LPA officers and are policy compliant. The BNG strategy, which has been submitted in support of this application, was prepared in concert with Natural England and the local Wildlife Trust. The applicants support the recommendations made and will work with the relevant bodies to ensure all impacts are mitigated appropriately and the BNG targets set out in policy LP28 are met through the delivery of the project. The applicants are aware of the need to work alongside the neighbouring landowners' consent for the successful delivery of the whole allocation and will work positively with the LBA to ensure that Section 106 allows the successful delivery of the whole allocation.
Can you kindly conclude, please?
We are pleased to see the officer's recommendations to support the application and recognise the proposals fully support the development plan. We are confident that this development will bring significant benefits to Peterborough. We respectfully request your support in resolving to grant outline planning permission, subject to agreement on conditions and the Section 106, in accordance with the officer's recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you. Do any members of the committee wish to ask a question? Councillor Espond.
Yes, thank you. What it is, you said about the Newborough Road upgrade. I did have a conversation over this at the site visit. Could you elaborate on what that will entail, please?
Absolutely. As we were on site, everyone will know Newborough Road is currently quite a small single-track road that will take a lot of responsibility for access for the wider site. It's the responsibility of all the applicants across the area to improve their part of Newborough Road so that it's suitable access for each of the allocations. That will include the widening of the road. It will include the integration of sufficient bus infrastructure along that road, and obviously we will be responsible for our part of that delivery. And if you think of the site almost like a puzzle piece, we will be the last puzzle pieces going in for that allocation. So we will be delivering the areas that are directly adjacent to our sites.
Thank you. Any further questions? Thank you. You may now return to the public gallery. Do any members have questions for officers? Councillor Mahmood.
Thank you, Chair. It's more on the 10% affordable housing. I note that obviously, a considerable amount of monies have been, sought for the wider sort of infrastructure. 26 million pounds is a lot of money. But was any sort of work done around trying to look at increasing that 10%? Because, in my view, I just think that is extremely low. But yeah, get your view on that.
Through you, Chair. It's a really good question. Thank you, Councillor. There is no absolutely correct way of divvying up the Section 106 pot. As you'll note from the report, the obligation request for just the financials was ranging between 39 to 43 million pounds. Now, our viability consultant was quite clear that the 30% with the financial ask was just unviable. the developer would have no reason to bring this site forward in that case. So it's an iterative process that you kind of work down and try to meet the majority of demands. And when we were looking at the affordable housing split, we also took into account the adjacent site. So the adjacent site also secured 10%. We thought that by securing that 10%, which is really the lowest that officers would really like to go, appreciating the housing demand need, that it would give us a sufficient pot to be able to at least address the majority of the financial requests. Now, bearing in mind the £26.5 million is quite a large figure, but just over £20 million is purely for education, or the education demand, namely 6.7 million for early years, 13.7 million for primary school, and then 9 to 13 million pounds for secondary provision, which would well over exceed that 20 million pounds. So it's striking that right balance between getting the right amount of affordable housing and the Section 106 demands. But crucially, this pot is fixed, so it is a case of balancing different demands and needs.
Thank you. Councillor Risby.
Thank you, and through you, Chair. In relation to the crossings to Manor School for children, can you just explain what type of crossings those are? I am thinking of the safety of children going across.
So the delivery of these crossings, so the crossing itself forms part of the CPCA scheme. I would believe is a toucan crossing. Yes, a toucan crossing. It would also need to serve cyclists as well as equestrian users, because there is a bridle way towards the south that will kind of cut through this site and then connect on through the bridle way that goes through Paston Reserve. But part of that infrastructure in terms of connectivity to Newbury Road will be delivered partially by the applicant in terms of road widening and providing that provision. But it will be a toucan crossing, I believe. Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Rangzeb.
Thank you, Chair. You've mentioned the Section 106. The amount requested by the parties is like £39 million, whereas the amount agreed is £26 million. There's a fair bit of difference in that. And also we are giving up with instead of 30% of affordable housing to 10%. How do we justify that? And also the second question is on the access. There's going to be a primary school in the Leeds Farm application. And this new application is kind of circling around the Leeds Farm application. How many access points are there going to be? Are the people or the children will be easily able to access to that primary school?
Thank you, through you, Chair. The viability one first. So we got advice from a viability consultant, and prior to how the viability demands came in, the secondary education request for £9 to £13 million came in quite late, alongside the highway demand for £5.5 million. So previous to this, taking out the secondary education and the £5.5 million requested by highways, the affordable housing stood at 11.95% with a £24 million financial obligation. Now, once the additional demands came in, our viability consultant was quite clear that not even considering the additional secondary school provision, if the entire 5.5 million that was just requested by highways was taken into account, the site would have no affordable housing provision. And it would not still be able to meet the entire highway allocation. So the 39 to 43 million pound figure would not be reasonably be able to be met by the developer. The viability would not work. And the key thing to understand about viability is that national policy sets it does set aside that the landowner is able to make a reasonable profit. the developer is able to make a profit between 15 to 20%. So all these matters were already considered in terms of taking baselines so all those matters, the costs and everything were considered. And it's not an easy balance to strike, but the entire pot was never going to be fulfilled. So it was striking a balance between accepting that there would be a shortfall and setting essentially the lowest affordable housing that we could secure to get the financial obligations that we could meet the local community's needs.
Sorry. Would you like to?
Yeah, and then I'll pick up the...
You want to come in? Yeah.
Yeah, just to add to what Asif was saying there. So with big developments like this, big urban extensions, it's very, very rare that they'll be able to afford all of the Section 106 demands from consultees and the full quota of affordable housing. Hampton, for example, I think only has its 6% affordable housing, although that does go back a long way. Great Haddon, a similarly low quota, I think it might be 10 to 12, something like that. And that is recognised in the local plan and in national policy as well, that if the full quota will make a development unviable, then the local plan says we will accept a lower figure. But it has to be tested through a viability assessment, which is what they've done. And we've had that tested by our expert, who concluded that there is a finite pot of money. Often one of the first things that gets cut is affordable housing. But if we were to only cut affordable housing, it would be down to zero. So that's clearly isn't acceptable or palatable, and there needs to be some affordable housing on the site to make it a sustainable development. 10% was settled on because that's the same as the adjacent Leeds Farm development. The remaining pot of money, there isn't enough to cover all of the demands of education, highways, etc. So a decision will have to be made. How do we divide that up between these competing infrastructures? And I think, Asif, you made it clear in your report, haven't you, that will be the exact division between those competing infrastructures will be something delegated to officers at that time, depending on what our priorities are at that time. But just to reiterate, policy does allow a lower amount.
Thank you. Councillor Espon.
Yes, thank you, through you, Chair. Can I just confirm the Leeds Farm development is only going to be residential and all the other amenities are going to be in the other development? Is that correct, or have I got that wrong?
Through you, Chair, the Leeds Farm development also includes provision of a school and a local centre, but both include provision of public open space and drainage. So those play facilities and everything does need to be provided on each site.
Okay, thank you. And could I ask another question, please? Also, Newborough Road, you're saying about, we're going to be looking at Newborough Road and a crossing. Having visited the site on Friday, where the crossing is going to be quite close to the A16. As you come off, it's going to be very, very close. Now, what I would like to know, what are you going to put in there, highways in particular, going to put in there to slow the traffic down, to make sure there are no accidents, because that's going to be used quite a lot during the day, at school time especially. I just need to know, will you have like 20 miles an hour? Will you take the road down to 20 miles an hour instead of 40? They're the questions I'd like to have the answer for. Thank you.
Yep, I think my highways colleagues will jump in, but just at a very high level, there is a condition on both, it's proposed to be on both applications, for details of how the carriageway will look in terms of the widening of Newborough Road. Clearly, with the CPCA scheme, that southbound junction is proposed to be deleted as well. But the provision of footway, cycleway, potential traffic calming measures is all considered within that. I think, Sarah, you can come in on the more specifics here.
Yeah, Thank you, through you, Chair. Yeah, just for clarity, Newborough Road in the vicinity of this site is actually a 30-mile-an-hour limit at the moment. But yes, there's an existing uncontrolled crossing point in the location where a permanent and more controlled crossing is intended to go. But it would all be part of the detailed design for the works to Newborough Road, and that would go through the safety auditing process as well as part of the detailed design. So traffic, any necessary kind of speed reduction features, so traffic calming or speed limit reductions and things like that would all be picked up as part of that overall detailed design for the works to Newborough Road.
Thank you. I've got a question for you, because I said I'm going to ask you a question. I'd like to thank Councillor Espond, because the Highway always complained that nobody asked them questions, so thank you for making them up. Now, in your address, we were talking about viability and affordable housing, the criteria being 30%, and you used the word exceptional circumstances. So can you explain to me what's exceptional about this scheme and why did you use that phrase?
Thank you, and through you, Chair. The exceptional circumstances, each site is dealt on its own merits, and the particular infrastructure demands on this site, so specifically the site access roundabout and other elements of delivery do constitute that, and our viability consultant was able to consider all those pressures, and it was a detailed review of all those, and we looked at specifically the infrastructure costs. We had a specialist consultant who provided advice, a quantity surveyor, to come in and provide those advice. So it's specific infrastructure demands on this site that did constitute that.
Thank you. Any more questions? Councillor Abond.
Thank you, Chair, and through you. It might not be appropriate, and if it's not fair enough, tell me, but just curious. So when you take into these viability studies for, say, affordable housing, and if the developers can afford it, do you consider future valuation? For example, I know house prices are going up and up and up. Is that considered in that valuation?
That's a really good question, Councillor Bond, and that's where the viability review mechanism becomes really, really key, because that's where it can capture. So the current viability review mechanism, or the current viability review at this stage, is all assumptions. It's based on market data. It's based on reasonable assessments, but they are projections. Whereas with the viability review mechanism, which has already been secured within Leeds Farm and is proposed to be secured in here, you get actual costs, so actual build costs, you get actual costs and profits as well. So that's where the additional profits, where if the scheme becomes more profitable than what was set out in the original viability review, that's when that can be captured. And typically we set a threshold, so just in case we don't necessarily chase after £100 where it'll actually cost us more, we do set a threshold, but above that demand, we collect that monies and we're able to use that for affordable housing delivery across the site. So that's where the viability review mechanism becomes really important.
Thank you. Any more questions? Okay, if there are no more questions, I will move to a debate. Does any member wish to start a debate? But before we start the debate, Phil, would you like to contribute or would you like to add anything? No. Wait, no? Okay. Right, who would like to start the debate? Councillor Rush.
I see no reason why we shouldn't accept this and grant this plan application.
Thank you. Councillor Abond.
So in terms of the scheme overall, I do foresee potential issues that I might have, but correct me if I'm wrong, but we are only discussing the access today, aren't we? So in terms of the access itself, I think it's quite a good mitigation, and hopefully, you know, we won't see any too much traffic chaos, because if it was left how it was currently, it would be completely unacceptable, obviously. So in terms of the access, hopefully it will do. So I'll be supporting it.
Yeah, just to remind members, the only issue before is access. Councillor Fitzgerald. And the principle of developing, yeah.
I don't necessarily feel I can add much to the debate in terms of, I'm satisfied. We had concerns over Newborough Road last time on the other one, but it seems to me that things have moved on and developers are collaborating on the improvements there. I've got a point of clarity, but I'll take it up with Asif or Sarah offline. But I feel I must say, in the interest of fairness, an excellent report from Asif, and aided and abetted by Sarah over many, many months. She doesn't get much praise, or we forget about her sometimes, but we know you're in the room. And again, well done to the team. It is months of work to get this far, Chair, and I will be supporting Officer's recommendation in this case to approve this application.
Thank you. Councillor Mahmood.
Thank you, Chair, and I second Councillor Fitzgerald's comments. You know, it's a very good report. In this particular application, I don't see no reason why I wouldn't be supporting officer recommendations. I do have reservations about the affordable housing stuff. I think as an authority, I think we should be doing more than just going for the 10%. So yeah, but I do understand that viability sometimes doesn't allow us to do that. But you know, I think we should really be pushing more towards the 15 and 20%. You know, if we can't get the 30, you know, if we can push that agenda, given the state of things. So, but yeah, in short, I will be supporting this application.
Thank you. Anyone further people would like to contribute to the debate? Councillor Warren.
I just want to kind of follow up on that situation. I am largely agreed. I think we all would like to see more of a social housing contribution in that situation, but we have an independent expert that we have to trust in that situation that will look at the viability of that site with that situation. So we have an expert we are paying for that situation. So obviously we would love to see a bit more with that social housing contribution, but I think we have to kind of accept it because we have that expert who's going to give us an independent review, and he's an independent to the council in what we're going to do. So I'm quite happy with the viability of the social housing. And obviously this is going to be just an outline application. So I'm happy with all the access areas, and especially with the concerns around Newborough Road as well. So I'm going to be going with the office recommendation to grant this application.
Thank you. Any further debate? Councillor Esbond.
Yes, I'd like to say thank you very much. You answered all my questions about Newborough Road. As you know, Newborough Road is my main concern because we're going to have students and cyclists and horses and the lot going across that road. I will be going with officers' recommendations, but we'll be watching this application, obviously. Thank you.
We're not going to vote for you. Right, okay. Any further debate? No, in that case, I can see that there are no more raised hands. Can I please ask for a proposal?
Chair, if I may, I propose that we accept officer recommendations and grant approval for outline planning.
Thank you. Can I also have a seconder? Councillor Rush. Thank you. Thank you. We'll now move to the vote. If members can raise their... Sorry, just bear with me 1 second. Okay, I think Phil wants to make some clarification on 106. Agreement?
Yeah, just...
Please do.
Sorry to be pedantic. I just wanted to make sure that members understood the entirety of the recommendation up on the screen there. It's slightly different from the one in the report in that Asif's mentioned that given a 12-month period to conclude the 106, unless there's extenuating circumstances which justify any further time.
Thank you. Right, so we have a seconder, which is Councillor Rush. Now, we will now move to the vote. If members can raise their hands. Oh, green. Vote yes. In favour of the recommendation. That's unanimous. So in that case, we don't need to do anything further. Thank you very much, and that concludes our today's meeting. Thank you very much for being patient and cooperative. Thank you very much.